Tina's life had always been orderly and predictable. At 28, she worked as an editor at a small local magazine, lived in a modest apartment on the third floor of an old building, and every morning, at precisely 7:45, she made her coffee by the kitchen window. It was during this daily ritual that she saw him for the first time. The man in the navy blue coat passed by every day, at the same time, with a determined stride that suggested purpose. He had a striking profile, a defined jawline, and a posture that conveyed confidence. Tina began to adjust her morning ritual to coincide with his passing, a small secret pleasure that brightened her mornings. "He passed by again today," she remarked to her friend Elena over the phone, while organizing the monthly bills into small piles on the table. "I'm sure he works at that new architecture office on the corner. And why don't you come down one of these days and accidentally bump into him?" Elena suggested, laughing on the other end of the line. "Don't be ridiculous," Tina responded, even though the idea had crossed her mind countless times. There was something comforting about the distance, in the possibility that remained intact as long as it didn't transform into reality. Tina came from a family where pragmatism outweighed romanticism. Her parents, owners of a small bookstore, had built a marriage more on companionship than passion. Love for them was a daily commitment, not an overwhelming feeling. Perhaps that's why Tina kept her romantic dreams contained in distant fantasies, like the one with the man in the blue coat. On the day of the accident, it was raining. Tina remembered the raindrops hitting against the window as she ran not to miss the bus. She remembered looking at the sky, searching for a break in the clouds. However, she didn't remember the truck that skidded on the wet road, nor the impact that threw her 5 meters ahead. She woke up 3 days later in a hospital room with a strange darkness enveloping everything. "Severe ocular trauma," explained the doctor, with a voice trying to balance professionalism and compassion. "The blindness may be temporary, but we cannot guarantee a full recovery at this moment." The words fell like stones in a still lake, creating waves that disturbed everything Tina knew about herself and her future. How would she edit texts without being able to read them? How would she prepare her morning coffee without seeing the exact measure of sugar she liked? The following months were a journey through darkness that went beyond the physical. Tina faced the depression that came with the loss of independence, the need to relearn basic tasks, and the redefinition of her identity. She moved into her parents' house, and it was her mother Martha who helped her navigate the new world of sounds, textures, and scents that replaced her sight. "You have always been too stubborn to give up," said Martha, as she guided Tina's hands through the house, creating mental maps of furniture and safe paths. It was during a physical therapy session, 6 months after the accident, that Tina met Scott. He was accompanying his younger sister at the hospital. "Let me help you," he offered, in a voice that sounded like a ray of sunshine breaking through heavy clouds. "I can do it myself," Tina replied, but her voice betrayed the frustration of someone trying for the 10th time to complete a simple exercise. "I'm sure you can," he replied without insisting, "but sometimes it's good to remember that accepting help doesn't diminish your strength." There was something in the way Scott spoke, direct, without pity, but with genuine empathy, that penetrated the barriers Tina had erected. Their meetings were frequent, and gradually he became a constant presence in her recovery routine. He told funny stories during the difficult exercises, brought small sweets that he described in sensory details, and, most importantly, listened when she needed to vent. "What does your face look like?" Tina asked one day, when they already felt comfortable with each other. Scott gently guided her hands to his face. "Find out for yourself." Tina's fingers traced the contours of high cheekbones, thick eyebrows, a slightly crooked nose that he explained was the result of a childhood fall, and lips that curved into a smile as she explored. There was a small scar near the right temple, and hair that fell slightly over the forehead. "Now you know more about my face than most people who see me every day," he said, gently holding her hands. The friendship between them naturally blossomed into something deeper. Scott was patient when Tina had bad days, frustrated when simple tasks seemed like insurmountable mountains. He never treated her as someone broken or incomplete. He saw beyond the disability to the stubborn, intelligent and determined woman she was. "When I was 12 years old, I broke both my legs," Scott shared one afternoon as they walked through the park near her apartment. "I spent 6 months in recovery, missing out on all the school activities, all the outings with friends. That's when I discovered books. My mother read to me every day. I think that's when I decided I wanted to help people discover new ways of seeing the world when life changes their plans." Tina discovered that Scott was an architect. Ironic, isn't it? Creating visual spaces when now I spend so much time helping people who cannot see them, and that his passion was designing accessible environments for people with disabilities. "You would be a perfect consultant," he said, half joking, half serious. A year after the accident, Tina had adapted to the new reality. She worked remotely as an editorial consultant, using screen reading software. She had relearned to cook and to move around the city with the help of a cane and specialized applications. Her independence was returning, different but present, and Scott was there, every step of the way, not as a crutch, but as a companion. "Marry me," he proposed one ordinary night while they were having dinner on her apartment's small balcony. Tina felt the velvet box touch her fingers, the ring inside simple yet meaningful. Scott described it as a thin silver band with small textures resembling waves, like the sound waves that connected us from the beginning. "Yes," she replied, without hesitation. The wedding preparations were a mix of joy and practical challenges. Her friend Eleanor, now her maid of honor, helped her choose dresses described in meticulous detail, fabrics selected for their texture against Tina's skin. "He's perfect for you," Elena would say. "I've never seen anyone understand you so completely." A week before the wedding, Tina had a routine appointment with her ophthalmologist, Dr. Lawson, who had been monitoring her condition since the accident. "We are seeing progress in the tests," he commented cautiously. "There is regeneration in the optic nerve that we did not expect. I don't want to create false hopes, but there is a possibility." Tina's heart raced. "Of regaining vision?" "Partially, perhaps. As I said, I don't want to raise expectations, but the signs are promising." Tina did not tell Scott. She didn't want him to nurture hopes that might not materialize, nor did she want the marriage to be marked by disappointment if nothing happened. Moreover, there was something symbolic about getting married in darkness. She loved him without ever having seen him, a love built on foundations deeper than physical appearance. On the eve of the wedding, while everyone was sleeping in the rented country house for the ceremony, Tina felt a strange sensation in her eyes. A tingling, followed by flashes of light that she hadn't seen in so long. Frightened, she called Elena, who was asleep in the next room. "I need to go to the hospital," she whispered, fearing what those signs could mean. In the emergency room, the doctor on call, after examining her thoroughly, gave the verdict with a smile in his voice. "Mrs. Davidson, I believe we are witnessing the beginning of a visual recovery. It's impossible to predict the extent, but there are clear signs of activity in the optic nerve." Tina cried, out of relief, fear and restrained hope. Elena held her hand throughout the night as they awaited more tests and the arrival of morning. "Don't tell anyone," Tina asked. "Not until we are sure. I don't want to raise expectations." The wedding morning dawned sunny. In her room, Tina felt the sun's rays warming her face through the window. Her hands trembled as Elena helped her with the dress, the hair, the subtle makeup. "You look beautiful," assured her friend. "Scott will faint when he sees you." "And I don't even know what he looks like," replied Tina with a nervous smile. But that morning, the darkness had different nuances. There were shadows, vague outlines that weren't there before. Tina kept this to herself, taking a deep breath, focusing on each moment. The ceremony would be simple, in the countryside house's garden, with only 50 guests, close family and dear friends. Tina would be escorted by her father to the improvised altar under an arbor of wildflowers. When the music started, Tina felt her father's arm link with hers. "Ready, dear?" She nodded, unable to speak through the lump in her throat. Each step down the petal-strewn aisle was a mix of anxiety and joy. The shadows in her vision seemed to intensify, shapes gaining more definition with each moment. Her heart was pounding so hard, she feared everyone could hear it. And then, as she reached the altar, it happened. It was as if a veil was slowly lifting. First colours, the blue of the sky, the green of the foliage, the white of her own dress, then more defined shapes, blurred faces becoming gradually clearer, and finally, Scott. The man in front of her smiled nervously, his eyes, she could see, blue as a summer sky, fixed on her with adoration. His face, which she had only known by touch, now revealed itself. The strong jaw, the expressive eyebrows, the slightly crooked smile to one side, and recognition hit her like a wave. The suit he wore was navy blue, the exact same shade she saw passing by her window every morning for so long. The same determined stride, the same profile she secretly admired. "Tina? Is everything okay?" Scott's voice reached her, concerned about her prolonged silence. The tears came without warning, flowing freely down her face. Her knees buckled, and Scott quickly stepped forward to support her. "I can see," she whispered, so softly that only he could hear. "I can see you." Scott's expression shifted from concern to astonishment, then to pure joy. "How? I can't believe it's you," she continued, ignoring the question, touching his face as she had done so many times before, but now combining sight and touch into a new experience. "The man in the blue coat. You used to walk past my window every morning. I watched you every day before the accident." Understanding slowly spread across Scott's face. "The red brick building, 3rd floor." Tina nodded, unable to hold back the tears. "I saw you too. Or rather, I saw your shadow," he confessed, his voice choked. "The girl at the window with the cup of coffee." The officiant cleared his throat discreetly, while the guests observed the intimate scene unfolding, confused. "I think we should continue with the ceremony," Scott murmured, not letting go of Tina's hands. "Unless you prefer a moment." "No," she interrupted, smiling through tears. "I want to marry you now, more than ever." The rest of the ceremony passed like a luminous dream. Tina, rediscovering the visual world, absorbed every detail. The rings exchanged, the flowers on the altar, her parents' emotional faces, the expression of pure happiness on her friend Elena's face. But her eyes always returned to Scott, to the face she had loved without seeing and that she now recognized from a previous life. At the reception, while dancing their first dance as a couple, Scott whispered in her ear, "You know what this means, right? We were destined for each other from the beginning. The universe just found a more complicated way to bring us together." Tina smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "All this time in the darkness, I learned that we truly see with the heart. I loved you without ever having seen your face, and now, seeing it, I just confirm what I already knew." Scott led her gently across the dance floor, holding her as if she were the most precious treasure. "Tomorrow we will go to the doctor to better understand what's happening with your vision. But today we just celebrate this miracle," she completed, "and the fact that even in complete darkness, destiny finds its way." As they twirled under the soft lights of the hall, Tina looked around, taking in every colour, every shape, every expression. But it was on Scott's face that her eyes always rested, as if she wanted to make up for all the time she couldn't see him. "Do you know what moves me the most?" she said. "It's not just having regained my vision. It's realizing that even when I couldn't see, somehow I chose exactly the man I've always admired from afar. As if, even in the darkness, my heart could still recognize you." Scott pulled her closer, his eyes shining with restrained emotion. "Some call it destiny. I prefer to call it love, the kind of love that finds its way through any obstacle." And as the music softly came to an end, Tina knew this was just the first of many dances they would share, illuminated not only by the physical light that had returned to their eyes, but by the deeper light they had found in each other, even in the darkest days. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.